pretty interesting. Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. I'm Shelly Sanchez-Terrell and this is Roscoe, who's going to go off to bed and take a nap. He always likes to take a nap. But we're here because of American TESOL. It's the Free Friday webinars. Every Friday we are here. It's free and we've been doing this for the last now 3 years. So we have over 150 webinars of various topics, and you can find all the links and the recordings and also a blog post for each of those topics, and get a certificate if you watch them if you go to this bit.ly address. This is a live binder, and a live binder is another curation tool. And so right now, a few of us, if you're just walking in, we're putting in our Pinterest addresses, URLs, so that way others can follow us as well. Is there anyone in the room that's not familiar with Pinterest or is not on Pinterest? If so, then type it in the chat box, so that way I know what kind of speed to go by. Now, you may wonder why, of all of the tools, you would want to use Pinterest. There are some things that I don't like about Pinterest, but there's some really good reasons why using Pinterest with students, especially language learners, would be really great. And one of the reasons why is because Pinterest is one of the most followed. It's more like a social network now. It's very popular. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, my mother, who is not techie at all, she still uses AOL and an e-machine, had asked me on her tablet we had gotten her, and it was a very cheap tablet, but she asked me if I could get Pinterest for her. She discovered Pinterest through Facebook, and she pins recipes. So the reason why Pinterest is why so many people know about it, and why it's probably the most known bookmarking and curation tool, is because everybody shares their enthusiasm about things. They share art that they love, they share graffiti, they share pugs, lots and lots of cute pugs, recipes, fashion, so many different things, and it looks very, very pretty to look at. In fact, it's one of the prettiest bookmarking tools out there. So there are 3 terms that are really important to know, which is bookmark, aggregate, and curate. And so you might hear bookmarking, aggregation, and curation. So most of us are familiar with bookmarking, which is where we find a website that we like, and then we click and we save it. Some of us will save it on our browser, and that's okay, but we can save it with Pinterest. The great thing about Pinterest is it creates boards for everything, and these boards end up being visual walls that look very, very nice. Aggregate. Aggregate is when you collect different types of bookmarks, and curate is if you think of your life in a museum, and when you go to a museum, you see a gallery, and you can see that it's very pretty, and that they section things off. You may have the Romans or the Chinese, and they're in different Chinese art, Roman art, Egyptian art. And when you see these things, they're in their different sections, and they're put in certain places for specific reasons. And that's what curate means. Now we do this with our bookmarks. We want to put our bookmarks in a way that looks very pretty. It's like our own museum of the web. So Pinterest is one of the best tools to make it seem like a beautiful gallery of the things that we love. Another important term that has come out because of Pinterest is pin. Pin used to mean something like a needle or a thread in pin, like when you're sewing and stuff. But now we use this for Pinterest because we will tag different quotes and things that we love, and instead of calling it tag, Pinterest termed it pin it. And so a lot of websites that you visit, you can see this beautiful red button that says pin it, and that means it'll go to your Pinterest. That's what they're trying to tell you. So how do you pin? Well, first of all, you have to have an account on Pinterest. It is free, so you can sign up for a free account. The great thing about Pinterest is that you can get something that's very unique as a URL. So for example, for my Pinterest, it's pinterest.com/Shelly Terrell. So it's very easy to follow. I did this for the Reform Symposium, and Peggy was with me for that. And it was very easy because then you can go to pinterest.com/Reform Symposium. I think Peggy's is probably pinterest.com/Peggy George. So it's very easy to put your name on it, and people can follow it quite easily, unless you do something funny with your name. The other great thing about Pinterest is you can collaborate on a board. So you can have more than one person put things together. And I'll show you what that looks like and some great examples of that. So the way you pin, there's 2 ways that you can pin. 3 ways, actually. The first way is if you go to Pinterest, every time you see a bookmark that you like, and you add this plus sign. So when you click this plus sign, it'll give you these options. Upload a pin. Actually, let me make that a little bit bigger for you. So you have upload a pin, add from a website, or create a board. Now, a board is a bunch of your pins all together. So if you want to just upload a pin, you can do that. The great thing is you can actually upload pictures and documents, things like that. You can upload screenshots, that kind of stuff as well. So you don't have to only pin websites. And you can add from a website, which means that you would get the URL and then you would put it there. But if you look at the bottom, when you click this, you'll look at the bottom and it tells you the pin it button is the easiest way to pin things from around the web. And this is my recommendation because this is going to save you tons and tons of time. So click on there and then go to the pin it button. You want this because when you install the pin it button or you drag it to your Bookmarklets tablet, then all you have to do is click that and it'll automatically, whatever page you're on, it'll allow you to pin it. One of the better options is to actually install the extension for it. And that's what I have. And so I would do that. It comes at the top of your browser on the right-hand side usually, or in the bar. And then you can just go to any site, pin it, and a box will show up, and then it'll allow you to do that. So when we have a bunch of pins that we have collected, then it looks like this. It's a board. This is my board of inspiration for world changers. I think I have about 70 boards now of different things. Classroom management tools. I have games, icebreakers, drama, all kinds of bookmarks. And one of the reasons why at the beginning I did use Pinterest to pin all of the bookmarks for American TESOL, but then I quickly changed that to Pearl Trees, and now I'm using Listly. And there's a reason for that. I'll let you know in just a bit. But this is what a board looks like. You can actually change the looks of the boards. You can make them all look one size, and a lot of people do that. They make it to where their boards have these all of the pins match. They're all the same size. People take a lot of care in making beautiful boards. So now that you've seen the basics of Pinterest, you might say, well, how can I use it? One of the drawbacks about Pinterest, the one reason why I stopped using it before, and it's had a lot of upgrades since then, is that if a site does not have a video or an image, or it can't read that video or image, then it's not going to pin it. You actually have to go through the process of taking a screenshot, and it takes a bit of time. So I don't really have that time. I want to be able to bookmark any type of website, whether it has a picture or not. And that is one of the reasons why I stopped using Pinterest. But this year, I was teaching teachers from Spain. It was 200 teachers from Spain, Guatemala, from different parts of Spanish-speaking countries. And we decided, because they were completely new to Web 2.0 tools, we decided that we were going to start with Pinterest because we figured that would be something they were familiar with. And so these are some of the ways that I've used Pinterest and how I had my students use Pinterest as well. One of the ways, and that teachers really love to use Pinterest, is they can find a lot of lesson plans. You can find tons of great lesson plans. And in fact, if you just go to Pinterest.com teachers, you can find every single grade level. You can find every single subject. You can find all kinds of different topics. And all of these are boards. There's literally hundreds and hundreds. And the great thing is that it recommends people that you can follow in these specific age groups. So if you teach 10-year-olds, then you may look at the second graders. Or if you teach science, then you may connect with teachers who are science teachers as well. So Pinterest.com for teachers is a really great resource. A lot of teachers also use it to find apps because there will be Pinterest boards, for example, from Matt B. Gomez, who pins a different app a day that's free. That's a great app for kids. You have some for the Common Core. You have some for Genius Hour. So another thing that you can do in Pinterest, even if you do not have a Pinterest account, if you ever want to do a search and you just don't want to use Google, Pinterest is a really great place to do a search. So you can use it as a search engine as well. You can look for different topics. You can click in science, art. So if you need inspiration for a lesson or lesson plan or idea, or you're trying to find information, your students would probably like to research on Pinterest. And there's a lot of good sources on there. Now, I wouldn't recommend it for kids. I would probably recommend it for high school and above because it's not completely have some stuff that might be a little questionable, especially for little kids. But one of the things you could do is you could have them look at a site full of boards. There are sites for cartoons, there are sites for animals, things like that, and they'll be able to see the visuals of it. The other great thing about Pinterest is if it's actually a video, it'll usually have a play button, and you can just click play, and it'll play from within there, so you don't have to go anywhere else. The way that I used to do with my students was also to create a student portfolio. So they collected all these bookmarks. It was a digital storytelling class, and so they collected their digital storytelling resources. And then at the end of the year, they had to go back and they had to reflect on it. One of the reasons why I had them do it this way is because Pinterest does have where you can leave comments on a pin. And so I thought that it would be a really great way because if you click on any of these, they blow up and then you can leave a comment. You can like it like Facebook where you can that you like it. You can put it on your wall. You can reshare it. Another drawback though of Pinterest that I forgot to mention before is when you do have the Pinterest boards, one of the things I don't like is that you can't move the actual pins. So for example, if I wanted these in a certain order, if all of these were the pins and I wanted to change it, like for example, if I had the 30 goals and I wanted to go 1 through 30, it doesn't allow you to do that. You have to actually repin and keep repinning. So that's one of the drawbacks that I don't like about Pinterest. But I did use it with my students. Another great way to do this is we're in January. So you can make a goal wall or you can have your students make a goal wall. They can go and they can list quotes. Every day they can post a quote. They can post their reflection of what was something they accomplished that day, what is still that they need to do. So they can put all of that, add inspiration, and then that can keep them motivated. So every day if they're trying to pursue a learning goal or any of their goals, then they can keep motivated. You can use Pinterest to do an about me. You can have where, and a lot of people are using it actually as a portfolio to show future coworkers because you can add pictures, you can add your slide presentations. I have an about me e-portfolio on Pinterest as well. And you can make it look very pretty. You can put your pictures, you can put all kinds of different things. If your students have badges and you're trying to find a place that they can collect badges, you might use Pinterest because badges are images. So Pinterest would be a great way for them to quickly, if you didn't want them, a lot of times the badge communities like classroomtools.com or, classbadges.com or the other ones make you go within or Mozilla, they make you walk through all these steps and you have to join a community and everything like that. So if you're already using Pinterest as a bookmarking tool, then just have your students, they can collect all their badges that way. So if you do teach with badges, I think it would be a really great way to collect them. You can have collaborative boards, and that's what we did with our students. So when you do a collaborative board, you have to actually add your students. And the way that you do this is they have to follow you. So first, they have to follow your Pinterest account. And only when they follow your Pinterest account and the boards, they have to click on something that says all boards, so they have to follow all the boards. And that is when their name will pop up so they can join it. So I think this is really good for students to collect a bunch of resources. Each week you can have them collect resources and pin them. You can have them pin different resources on any different topic. And it gets them motivated. It's a great way to keep background research, and it's a great way for them to gain interest about your topic and to keep thinking about it because they can do this at home. So they don't realize that it's homework, but if you work with adult students too, you may find that they don't want to use a lot of social networks, but they do seem to like Pinterest. Like I said, my mother loves it. One of the other ways is if you happen to be part of a conference, the next conference you go to, ISTE and some of the other famous conferences, somebody always starts a board to collect all of the blog posts, to collect different reflections throughout videos, interviews, things like that, maps and everything like that. Well, if you want them to, okay, so Peggy asked a very good question. Peggy says, are you saying that you only get notifications of updates to boards if you follow all and not if just follow? What I'm saying is that if you want someone to collaborate on that board, they have to specifically follow that board. So they don't have to follow all, but if you are doing it for the class, it's sometimes easier if they just follow all the boards. Because sometimes you'll have more than one board for the week. So if you have 15 weeks, and what I recommend is don't use your person account. Create a Pinterest account for the class itself, because then you might want to collect things like I collect pugs. I do Pinterest of pugs. I also do Pinterest of dating ideas, books I like, art. I don't want my students to really follow that. So let's say I want to edit a board. Well, you can make boards on any topic. Let's say you're planning a trip, or let's say you want to make a lesson, and your lesson is you get students in a group of 4, and you say you're going to plan a trip. And on Pinterest, you're going to pin your itinerary, you're going to pin your travel destination, you're going to pin all the places that you're going to see, you're going to pin the weather, the cost, what the rental car is. So Pinterest would be a great way to conduct this lesson, because then they can collect all that information on the web, and then they can use this. They can pin useful travel English. So this is a good lesson that you can have with Pinterest. You can pin music as well. So let's say they're planning a road trip instead. They can even do that as well. They can add music for the road trip. And trips, travel trips. You just go to the, when you created a board, which I showed you earlier, or you can even edit the board, you can change the name. Okay, so you can put the name, add a description. You can even add a link in the description. What category, so you can categorize it as education or not. And then they have this new feature called Add a Map. I'm going to show you what that is. That came out a few weeks ago, and it's super cool. I actually like it quite a lot. It's really beautiful. And then here you can type someone's name, and if they follow your board and you follow them, then they will show up, so you can add them as a collaborator. But those things have to take place first. So for my current um, open online course, which is 500 students, I didn't want to have to add every student that way. I just thought that wouldn't be that great of a process. So now I use Listly, uh, but my students some of the people don't seem to like it that much compared to Pinterest, I guess. I think they probably would have liked that better. And that's one of the most powerful reasons to use Pinterest, because if your students are going to use it and they already have Pinterest accounts, then you might as well use what they're going to use in their everyday life. Because, of course, you want them to be able to repeat these. You want them to use it for their life so they can keep learning and researching. Here's some other ideas. You can collect resources for each chapter. You can brainstorm a topic. So you can do this as a pre-task. You can, if you're starting the topic, you can show them something like whatever the chapter title is, maybe the 1920s, and you can give them 5 minutes if they have a computer, or 10, and you can say, okay, we're all going to pin on one board everything that we think that we know about the 1920s, or anything we can find about the 1920s. And then they have 5 minutes to rush and collect this information. And it's a great way to get them to have a visual. You can do this for novels as well. So let's say you're going to read the Tolkien novel or The Great Gatsby. Well, your students may have a very difficult time imagining what The Great Gatsby is going to look like. So you can have them, you can put hints like the date and the time, and then they can get an idea. So when they're reading the book, they're imagining that actual place and time. And so that would be a great way to get them. And it helps them with the language. It helps them understand the plot more. You can post a song list to go with the mood of a story or chapter. So while you're reading a book, let's say you're reading about history and it's a war, then you can have them make a Pinterest of war songs, of peace songs. If you're reading a novel and the novel happens to get to this climax area, like for example, Twilight, when they get married, they can think of, and the reason why you would do this, you might say, well, why would I do this? Because students don't like to read, and they don't really get engaged with the story. Usually when they're forced to read something that they didn't choose or pick, that's why they don't want to read it. So if you do these things, if you put it with Pinterest and you get them excited and they get to do a song list, they get to do a movie preview later and things like that, then they can connect with the story and it's something that they like to do. You can create a very good word wall, an online word wall on Pinterest. Where you have different words that you collect throughout the year. You can even use those words and mix them up later at the end of the year to make a story or poetry with those words. You can post various projects. So here we did a bunch of interviews for RSCon, and notice how all of these videos are placed here. When you can actually click play and it'll just pop up with a box and it will play automatically. It doesn't take you to another site. It'll play within Pinterest. So that's a very, very cool thing to do. You can post, you can have your students have a group project here. So one of the things that you're going to do when you're working with technology, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how am I going to store my students' work? Well, the way that you can collect that work and see the research that they did, instead of back in the day, they would turn all of this, their first draft, their editing, all of the research, everything, they would turn in a folder. Well, you can think of Pinterest as that folder. You can collect resources or blog posts from a conference. We already talked about that. We talked about that. You can have now place boards. Now this is one of the different options that Pinterest has. You can make maps now. And the maps are absolutely beautiful. You can go to pinterest.com places, and this is what it looks like. you pin any place in the world, and then it'll allow you to do a search. You don't even have to you just search the location. It's integrated with Foursquare, so it'll look up that destination and it'll provide pictures for you. You don't have to go and pin these. They're all within the Pinterest place board now. And that's what I like a lot. And then it allows you to write sort of like a mini description or mini blog post about each of the resources you collected. There are so many wonderful things you can do just with the placeboard. You can create a participant map, so all your students can go, if you're teaching an online class and they can be a part of this, you can invite them, it can be collaborative, and they can pin where in the world they are, and they can put a little post, their 3, 2, 1, or a description. We were going to do this for the Massive Open Online course, but when this first came out, and I don't know if they fixed it yet, nobody could see it. So all the places that I was pinning, I was going to do this for the 30 goals too, nobody could see them. Only I could see them. So this is something that I'll have to check again to make sure that it's working now. But it's really quick and fast, and that's one I think they like. Here I'm using an example of a ghost town. So it's different places around that are haunted. You can even pin different types of, like if you have a global class project, you can pin where they're at, where those people are. If you have blogging with students, if you're blogging with students, now your students can go and they can use this place and they can pin where their comments came from. So you can have someone responsible for each day. Each day they collect the stats and stuff of what comments and where the person was at on their blog. And students love that. And then at the end of the year, they have this beautiful map of all the people who came to visit their blog. The way you do it is you add a place. I added the Alamo because we were going to start there, my hometown, San Antonio. And when I click that, you notice all these pictures that come up. All of these pictures come up. I even put them there. And then I choose the one that I want. So these are some more things that you can do with Pinterest. You can have virtual tours. You can study different cultures. If you're doing a mystery Skype or a mystery Hangout, you can pin all the places that you discover in the mystery Hangout. You can also do that if you have something like a Flat Stanley travel, or if you have a teddy bear that goes around the world, then you can pin their blog, you can add their blogs to it, to the place, and then you can add pictures of that place as well. You can also do a lot more with Pinstamatic. So I said there are some limitations. For example, Pinterest won't pin sites that not all sites. And Pinstamatic is a great option because it lets you make Pinterest really beautiful. There's different things you can do. So it allows you to pin any web. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a bookmarklet or extension, but I use this quite a bit. I use Pinstamatic for a lot of different things when I'm pinning now. You can put a date. You can even put a Spotify song list. I absolutely love the Twitter one. And the Twitter one, you don't even have to copy and paste the URL. You just put your @ and it makes this really beautiful profile of your Twitter profile. It's really pretty. You can even pin sticky notes. So you can add quotes. You can add text to this. If your students are writing something, then you can have them use this option to pin different things. You can pin text as well. You can make it look really pretty, the text. You can pin a place, and then you can even pin a photo. And it gives you different options because Pinterest does let you pin photos, but their options, they'll allow you some editing options as well. And then you can get a pin it button for your blog. So if you're on Pinterest and you want other Pinterest to follow you, or pinners to follow you, that's what you call Pinterest, or people who pin are pinners. Then you can go to their widget builder and you can add the pin it gives you free ones to use. The other thing it does is it'll allow you to even download and use their icon. So you might have seen the Pinterest logo. I didn't have to give it Creative Commons or anything. It actually lets me do that. And they even have a build a Pinterest board widget as well. So you can do all of these things where you can show, you can actually show on your website, you can embed it, and it'll show all of your boards. You won't be able to get the pins raised up. Basically, it's almost like an image, and then it takes you straight to the Pinterest website. But it's one way to get people to see what you might be interested in. So once again, I want to remind you of that very important resource, which is Pinterest.com teachers. And that's where you can find resources, lesson plans, literally thousands and thousands of great lesson plans. Some of the best ideas I've seen with kids is Pinterest, are on Pinterest boards. I've seen some phenomenal things. If you teach with toddlers, they have amazing things. One of the next ideas that we're doing, or the topics that we're researching, is masking tape. And I did a lot of research on Pinterest and found so many great things to do on Pinterest. So I found a lot of great resources for that. They have storytelling options. They have so many wonderful things that you can discover from other teachers. Now, Peggy says you don't have to worry about copyright with Pinterest since you're just linking to the post. Yes, exactly. So Pinterest itself has taken a snapshot or has curated an image from there. And the same thing with Pinstamatic, so you don't have to worry. And that's it. You can follow me on Pinterest. You can even get the slides. Peggy already pinned those. I put it inside the chat box. So you can go and you can copy and paste the chat box, and then you'll be able to find that link. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And next week, we're going to get off of, I believe we're going to get off technology, and we're going to talk about masking tape. And you may say, well, why would I want to learn about masking tape? Because if you ever have computer problems, if you ever have anything go wrong at a workshop, let's say that, and I've had this happen before where the projector stopped working, the projector didn't even work. So it wasn't that we didn't have any internet, we didn't even have a projector. And if you carry masking tape, there's so many ideas and so many ways to engage your audience and teach them with masking tape. So hopefully you'll join me next week when we do that. And we also have a Facebook page now for